The flames reached higher into the purple sky of Kethra 7, consuming what remained of the research station. Dr. Claire Morgan stood on the cliff edge, watching 3 years of work turn to ash and twisted metal. The evacuation shuttle was already a silver dot against the horizon, carrying Commander Alan Foster and the rest of her team to safety in orbit. She should have been on that shuttle. Dr. Morgan, this is your last chance. Foster's voice had crackled through her comm unit 20 minutes ago. The solar storms are getting worse. We cannot come back for you. Claire had looked at her half-finished data collection, at the behavioral patterns she had been tracking for months, and made her choice. I need 6 more hours, Alan. Just 6 hours. You don't have 6 hours. That Alpha has been circling the perimeter for 2 days. It knows we're leaving. It's waiting. Claire had smiled then, the same smile she wore now as she watched the shuttle disappear. I know. The comm unit sat silent on her belt now. The emergency beacon that would have brought rescue was somewhere in the burning station, buried under collapsed walls and melted equipment. She had planned to grab it on her way out. That plan had failed when the station's power core overloaded early. A sound echoed from the valley below. Not quite a roar, not quite a howl. Something that made her bones remember fears older than civilization. Claire turned from the burning station and looked down into the darkening forest. The trees on Kethra 7 grew thick and twisted, their bark covered in thorns that wept poison. Between those trees something moved. Something massive. The Krovar Alpha emerged into a clearing 500 meters away. Even at this distance, Claire could see the size of it. The creature stood 4 meters tall at the shoulder, its body covered in scales that shifted between green and black. 6 legs supported its bulk, each ending in claws designed for tearing. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth that had evolved for one purpose only. But it was the eyes that held Claire's attention. Most predators had simple eyes. They saw movement, heat, the basic shapes of prey. The Krovar Alpha's eyes were different. They held intelligence, purpose, strategy. The creature had been hunting her team for weeks. Not attacking, just watching. Learning their patterns. Studying their behavior. It had waited until the evacuation, until the numbers were smaller, until the advantages were gone. Now those eyes fixed on Claire, and she understood something that her data had only suggested before. This was not simple hunger. The Alpha was not looking at food. It was looking at a challenge. Claire felt her heart rate increase. Not from fear, though fear was certainly present. From excitement. From the same feeling she had experienced as a girl in the Australian outback, tracking dingoes across red sand. From the thrill of understanding something that others missed. She raised her hand slowly and waved at the creature. The Krovar Alpha tilted its head. The gesture was so human-like that Claire almost laughed. Confusion. The predator was confused. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep red. On Earth, sunset meant safety for humans, danger for those caught outside. On Kethra 7, sunset meant the real hunters emerged. The Krovar were bad during the day. At night they were perfect killing machines. Claire had perhaps 30 minutes of usable light remaining. 30 minutes to make a choice that would determine whether she saw another sunrise. She could climb higher up the cliff, find a defensive position, hope that rescue would come before the Alpha decided to make its move. It was the smart choice. The safe choice. The choice that any reasonable person would make. Claire had never been particularly reasonable. She turned her back on the cliff and walked toward the forest. Toward the Alpha. Her pack contained everything she needed. Portable shelter. Water filtration. Medical supplies. And most importantly, her research equipment. Cameras. Audio recorders. Movement sensors. If she was going to die on this world, she was going to die doing what she loved. Observing. Learning. Understanding. The Alpha watched her approach. Its body language shifted. Claire had studied that body language for 3 years. The lowered head meant aggression. The raised tail meant alertness. The flexing claws meant preparation for attack. But the creature did not attack. Claire stopped at the edge of the clearing, exactly 200 meters from the predator. Close enough to see details. Far enough to have a chance if it charged. She dropped her pack and began setting up her portable shelter. It was a simple thing, just a dome of smart fabric that would keep out rain and wind. It would not keep out a Krovar. She worked slowly, deliberately. Every movement calculated to show no fear. She activated her cameras, positioning them to capture the Alpha from multiple angles. She set up her audio equipment, recording the sounds of the forest as darkness fell. The Alpha moved closer. 150 meters now. Its eyes never left her. Claire finished setting up camp and sat down on a folding chair. She pulled out a ration bar and ate it slowly, watching the predator watch her. The behavior was unprecedented. In 3 years of study, she had never seen a Krovar hesitate like this. They were ambush hunters. They struck fast and hard, using surprise and overwhelming force. This alpha was doing something different. It was testing, probing, trying to understand what kind of prey would walk toward a predator instead of running away. Claire smiled and took another bite of her ration bar. The alpha's confusion was visible now in the way it circled, always maintaining that distance, never committing to an attack. "You've never seen anything like me before, have you?" Claire said aloud. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You've hunted everything on this world. You know how prey behaves. Run, hide, fight. But I'm not doing any of those things." The alpha's ears, small and set close to its skull, twitched at the sound of her voice. Claire activated her portable light, a soft glow that pushed back the darkness around her camp. The sun had set completely now. The forest came alive with sounds. Chirps and howls and screams of things killing and being killed. Through it all, the alpha remained. Watching. Waiting. Claire pulled out her sleeping roll and laid it inside the shelter. She checked her equipment one final time, making sure everything was recording. Then she looked back at the predator. "Let's see who's hunting who," she said softly. The alpha's eyes gleamed in the reflected light. And somewhere in the darkness beyond, Claire heard other sounds. Other Krovars answering their alpha's call. Her smile widened as she settled into her shelter, leaving the entrance open, staying visible. The hunt had begun. The flames reached higher into the purple sky of Krovars 7, consuming what remained of the research station. Dr. Claire Morgan stood on the cliff edge, watching 3 years of work turn to ash and twisted metal. The evacuation shuttle was already a silver dot against the horizon, carrying Commander Alan Foster and the rest of her team to safety in orbit. She should have been on that shuttle. "Dr. Morgan, this is your last chance," Foster's voice had crackled through her comm unit 20 minutes ago. "The solar storms are getting worse. We cannot come back for you." Claire had looked at her half-finished data collection, at the behavioral patterns she had been tracking for months, and made her choice. "I need 6 more hours, Alan. Just 6 hours. You don't have 6 hours. That alpha has been circling the perimeter for 2 days. It knows we're leaving. It's waiting." Claire had smiled then, the same smile she wore now as she watched the shuttle disappear. "I know." The comm unit sat silent on her belt now. The emergency beacon that would have brought rescue was somewhere in the burning station, buried under collapsed walls and melted equipment. She had planned to grab it on her way out. That plan had failed when the station's power core overloaded early. A sound echoed from the valley below. Not quite a roar, not quite a howl. Something that made her bones remember fears older than civilization. Claire turned from the burning station and looked down into the darkening forest. The trees on Krovars 7 grew thick and twisted, their bark covered in thorns that wept poison. Between those trees something moved. Something massive. The Krovar Alpha emerged into a clearing 500 meters away. Even at this distance, Claire could see the size of it. The creature stood 4 meters tall at the shoulder, its body covered in scales that shifted between green and black. 6 legs supported its bulk, each ending in claws designed for tearing. Its head was long and narrow, filled with teeth that had evolved for one purpose only. But it was the eyes that held Claire's attention. Most predators had simple eyes. They saw movement, heat, the basic shapes of prey. The Krovar Alpha's eyes were different. They held intelligence, purpose, strategy. The creature had been hunting her team for weeks. Not attacking, just watching. Learning their patterns. Studying their behavior. It had waited until the evacuation, until the numbers were smaller, until the advantages were gone. Now those eyes fixed on Claire, and she understood something that her data had only suggested before. This was not simple hunger. The alpha was not looking at food. It was looking at a challenge. Claire felt her heart rate increase. Not from fear, though fear was certainly present. From excitement. From the same feeling she had experienced as a girl in the Australian outback, tracking dingoes across red sand. From the thrill of understanding something that others missed. She raised her hands slowly and waved at the creature. The Krovar Alpha tilted its head. The gesture was so human-like that Claire almost laughed. Confusion. The predator was confused. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in shades of orange and deep red. On Earth, sunset meant safety for humans, danger for those caught outside. On Krovars 7, sunset meant the real hunters emerged. The Krovar were bad during the day. At night they were perfect killing machines. Claire had perhaps 30 minutes of usable light remaining. 30 minutes to make a choice that would determine whether she saw another sunrise. She could climb higher up the cliff, find a defensive position, hope that rescue would come before the Alpha decided to make its move. It was the smart choice. The safe choice. The choice that any reasonable person would make. Claire had never been particularly reasonable. She turned her back on the cliff and walked toward the forest. Toward the Alpha. Her pack contained everything she needed. Portable shelter. Water filtration. Medical supplies. And most importantly, her research equipment. Cameras. Audio recorders. Movement sensors. If she was going to die on this world, she was going to die doing what she loved. Observing. Learning. Understanding. The Alpha watched her approach. Its body language shifted. Claire had studied that body language for 3 years. The lowered head meant aggression. The raised tail meant alertness. The flexing claws meant preparation for attack. But the creature did not attack. Claire stopped at the edge of the clearing, exactly 200 meters from the predator. Close enough to see details. Far enough to have a chance if it charged. She dropped her pack and began setting up her portable shelter. It was a simple thing, just a dome of smart fabric that would keep out rain and wind. It would not keep out a Krovar. She worked slowly, deliberately. Every movement calculated to show no fear. She activated her cameras, positioning them to capture the Alpha from multiple angles. She set up her audio equipment, recording the sounds of the forest as darkness fell. The Alpha moved closer. 150 meters now. Its eyes never left her. Claire finished setting up camp and sat down on a folding chair. She pulled out a ration bar and ate it slowly, watching the predator watch her. The behavior was unprecedented. In 3 years of study, she had never seen a Krovar hesitate like this. They were ambush hunters. They struck fast and hard, using surprise and overwhelming force. This Alpha was doing something different. It was testing. Probing. Trying to understand what kind of prey would walk toward a predator instead of running away. Claire smiled and took another bite of her ration bar. The Alpha's confusion was visible now in the way it circled, always maintaining that distance, never committing to an attack. "You've never seen anything like me before, have you?" Claire said aloud. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You've hunted everything on this world. You know how prey behaves. Run, hide, fight. But I'm not doing any of those things." The Alpha's ears, small and set close to its skull, twitched at the sound of her voice. Claire activated her portable light, a soft glow that pushed back the darkness around her camp. The sun had set completely now. The forest came alive with sounds. Chirps and howls and screams of things killing and being killed. Through it all, the Alpha remained. Watching. Waiting. Claire pulled out her sleeping roll and laid it inside the shelter. She checked her equipment one final time, making sure everything was recording. Then she looked back at the predator. "Let's see who's hunting who," she said softly. The Alpha's eyes gleamed in the reflected light. And somewhere in the darkness beyond, Claire heard other sounds. Other Krovars answering their Alpha's call. Her smile widened as she settled into her shelter, leaving the entrance open, staying visible. The hunt had begun. Claire woke before dawn to the sound of breathing. Not her own. Something larger. Something close. She opened her eyes slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. The Alpha stood 10 meters from her shelter, its massive head lowered to the ground. It was smelling her trail, tracking the path she had walked the night before. Learning. Most people would have panicked. Most people would have reached for a weapon or tried to run. Claire stayed perfectly still and watched. The creature's behavior reminded her of something from her childhood. She had been 12 years old, sitting in a blind with her father in the Australian outback. A dingo pack had been killing sheep on a neighboring farm, and everyone wanted them dead. But her father had wanted to understand them first. "Watch how the Alpha moves," he had whispered. "See how it tests the fence? It's not looking for food right now. It's gathering information. Predators are always learning." Claire had watched that dingo Alpha for 3 hours. She had seen it probe defenses, test boundaries, study patterns. The sheep farmers had thought the dingoes were simple killers. Her father had known better. Apex predators were survivors because they were smart. The Krovar Alpha was doing the same thing now. Testing. Learning. Trying to understand what Claire was. She sat up slowly in her shelter. The Alpha's head snapped toward her, eyes locked on her movement. Claire met its gaze and held it. In the predator world, eye contact meant different things. Among wolves it was a challenge. Among great cats it was a threat. Among dingoes it was communication. She wondered what it meant to a Krovar. The Alpha took one step forward. Then another. Its body language was cautious, uncertain. This was wrong for a predator in its own territory. It should be confident, aggressive. Instead, it moved like something encountering the unfamiliar. Claire stood up. The alpha stopped moving. She walked to the edge of her shelter and pulled out a water container. She drank slowly, never breaking eye contact with the creature. Then she poured some water on the ground in front of her, deliberately wasting a precious resource on a desert world. The alpha tilted its head again. That gesture of confusion. "You don't know what to do with me," Claire said quietly. "Every prey animal you've ever hunted has followed the rules. Run or hide or fight. But I'm just standing here, watching you the same way you're watching me." She pulled out another ration bar and ate breakfast while the alpha stared. The absurdity of the situation was not lost on her. She was having breakfast while a 4-ton killing machine stood close enough to reach her in 3 bounds. Her colleagues would have called her insane. They would have been partially correct. But Claire was not being reckless. She was being deliberate. Every action was calculated. She had studied predator psychology for 15 years. She knew that the unknown was more powerful than fear. A predator could handle fear. Fear made prey run, and running prey was easy to catch. But confusion? Confusion made predators hesitate. She finished her breakfast and began packing her camp. The alpha watched every movement. When Claire lifted her pack and started walking, the creature finally moved. It followed. Not charging. Not attacking. Following. Claire walked a winding path through the forest, moving deliberately through areas where the underbrush was thick. She climbed over fallen logs that forced her to expose her back. She walked past water sources where she stopped to fill her containers, turning away from the alpha completely. Each action was a test. Each vulnerability was bait. The alpha could have killed her a dozen times. It did not. By midday, Claire had covered 3 kilometers. The alpha had maintained a steady distance of about 20 meters, matching her pace exactly. She stopped at a clearing and set up her portable scanner. The device hummed to life, sending waves of energy through the forest, mapping the terrain and detecting movement. 3 more signals appeared on the screen. Large. Moving fast. Coming from different directions. Claire looked up from the scanner. The alpha stood at the clearing's edge, its body turned slightly away from her. It made a sound, a deep rumbling that carried through the trees. Not a roar. A call. The 3 other Krovars emerged from the forest within minutes. They were smaller than the alpha, younger, but each was still large enough to kill her easily. They looked at Claire with the simple hunger she had expected from the alpha. These ones wanted to attack. Their body language screamed it. But they did not move. The alpha made another sound, sharper this time. A command. The 3 younger Krovars circled the clearing, but they kept their distance. They were confused too, looking between Claire and their alpha, trying to understand why the hunt had not begun. Claire smiled. This was perfect. One alpha was smart, dangerous, unpredictable. But a pack? A pack had dynamics. Hierarchies. Young males who wanted to prove themselves. Tensions that could be exploited. She had not planned for this, but she could use it. Claire pulled out a flare from her pack. The younger Krovars tensed immediately, recognizing something dangerous. She activated it slowly, letting the bright red light fill the clearing. Then she threw it in a high arc over the alpha's head. The flare landed 30 meters away, burning bright against the forest floor. 2 of the younger Krovars jumped back, startled. The third one charged toward the flare, curiosity overcoming caution. The alpha made a sharp barking sound. The young Krovar stopped instantly, returning to its position. Claire noted the response. The alpha had complete control of its pack. That was useful information. She started walking again, this time not away from the Krovars, but at an angle that would lead them all deeper into the forest. Toward an area she had mapped weeks ago. Toward terrain that she knew and they did not. The pack followed. All 4 of them now, spread out in a loose formation. They were hunting her, but they were also letting her choose the path. The contradiction seemed to frustrate the younger ones. They kept looking at the alpha, waiting for permission to attack. Claire increased her pace slightly. The Krovars matched it easily. She broke into a light jog. They stayed with her, barely exerting effort. Then Claire began to run. Not in panic. Not in fear. In a steady, measured pace that humans had perfected over millions of years of evolution. The persistence hunt. The method that had let her ancestors chase down prey across the African savanna. Not with speed, but with endurance. The Krovars were built for explosive power. Their muscles were designed for ambush attacks, for short bursts of incredible speed. They could run faster than any human for about 300 meters. Claire planned to run for 3,000. The younger Krovars charged after her immediately, closing the distance in seconds. But Claire did not try to outrun them. She ducked under low branches that they had to go around. She jumped over streams that they had to cross carefully. She used the terrain to slow them down without slowing herself. After 500 meters, the younger Krovars were breathing hard. After 1,000, they were falling behind. Their powerful muscles were built for the sprint, not the marathon. But the Alpha kept pace. Not easily but steadily. It matched her stride for stride, its intelligent eyes watching her technique, learning her methods. Claire's smile grew wider as she ran. The Alpha was smart enough to keep up. Smart enough to learn. Smart enough to understand that she was not running from it. She was leading it somewhere specific. Behind them, the younger Krovars struggled to follow, their confusion complete. They had never encountered prey that ran not to escape but to guide. Prey that turned the chase into something else entirely. Claire checked her scanner as she ran. 2 more kilometers to her destination. 2 more kilometers until the Alpha understood exactly what kind of hunter it was dealing with. Claire ran for 2 hours without stopping. Her legs burned. Her lungs ached. Sweat soaked through her clothes despite the cooling technology woven into the fabric. But she did not slow down. Behind her, the 3 younger Krovars had given up after the first hour. They stood panting in a clearing half a kilometer back, their massive bodies heaving with exhaustion. Their kind had never needed endurance. On HFY, hunts ended in minutes, not hours. Prey either died quickly or escaped into holes too small for predators to follow. But the Alpha still followed. Its breathing was labored now, heavy and rough. Foam dripped from its jaws. Its powerful legs, built for explosive charges, moved with visible effort. Yet it did not stop. Did not give up. Claire glanced back and saw something in those intelligent eyes. Not hunger anymore. Not even the desire to kill. Something else. Determination. The need to understand. She stopped running. The Alpha stopped 20 meters away. Its chest expanded and contracted rapidly. It lowered its head, trying to catch its breath while keeping its eyes locked on her. Claire pulled out her water container and drank deeply. Then she did something that would have seemed insane to anyone watching. She walked toward the Alpha and poured water on the ground between them. An offering. A recognition of the effort. The Alpha stared at the water pooling on the dirt. Its tongue, long and dark, emerged from its mouth. For a moment, Claire thought it might approach. Might drink. But it stayed where it was, pride or instinct keeping it from accepting help from prey. Claire sat down on a rock and pulled out a nutrition bar. She ate slowly, letting her heart rate return to normal. The Alpha watched every movement. Its breathing gradually steadied. "You're wondering why I stopped," Claire said aloud. The Alpha's ears twitched at her voice. "You could have given up. Gone back to your pack. But you didn't. You kept following. Do you know why?" The creature of course did not answer. But Claire saw the way its head tilted slightly. That gesture of confusion that had become familiar. "Because I'm not running from you. I'm showing you something." Claire stood and pulled out one of her emergency flares. She activated it and stuck it in the ground. The bright red light burned against the darkening forest. Then she pulled out a second flare and threw it 30 meters ahead, marking a path. She started walking. The Alpha, after a moment's hesitation, followed. Claire led them into a section of forest she had mapped 3 months ago. The trees here grew differently, their trunks marked with deep gouges. Claw marks. But not from Krovars. These marks were larger, deeper. Made by something else. The Alpha saw the marks and stopped. His body language changed instantly. The confident predator became cautious, uncertain. It made a low growling sound, a warning to itself. Claire kept walking. She passed directly under one of the marked trees, her hand brushing against the gouges. The Alpha did not follow. It circled around, giving the marked tree a wide berth. "You know these marks," Claire said. "Your instincts tell you to avoid this territory. Something bigger than you lives here. Something dangerous." She activated another flare and threw it deeper into the marked territory. The light revealed more scarred trees, more warnings that predators recognized. The Alpha made a sharp barking sound. Behind them, somewhere in the distance, the younger Krovars answered. They were calling to each other, warning each other. "Stay away. Danger here." But Claire did not stay away. She walked deeper into the forbidden zone, her flares marking a path that the Alpha could follow but chose not to. She was demonstrating knowledge that prey should not have. Understanding of territories and boundaries that took years to learn. The Alpha paced back and forth at the boundary line, agitated. It wanted to follow but instinct held it back. Finally it made a decision. It turned and began circling around the marked territory, looking for a way to track Claire without entering the danger zone. Claire smiled. The creature was learning that she understood its world in ways that should be impossible. She emerged from the marked territory on the far side and waited. The Alpha appeared 10 minutes later, having circled around. It approached her with new caution, new respect. The relationship had shifted. Claire was no longer simple prey. She was something that required different rules. Night was falling again. Claire set up camp in a small clearing, her movements efficient from practice. She built a fire this time, using dead wood and a chemical starter from her pack. Fire was a human tool, one of the oldest. Predators feared it instinctively. The Alpha watched the flames spring to life. It backed away several steps, its eyes reflecting the orange light. The younger Krovars, who had caught up during Claire's detour, retreated even further. Fire meant danger. Fire meant pain. But Claire sat next to the flames, comfortable and relaxed. She heated a meal packet and ate slowly, the firelight dancing across her face. She pulled out her audio equipment and played a recording she had made weeks ago. The sound of a Krovar in pain filled the clearing. The Alpha's reaction was immediate. Its head snapped up, searching for the source. The younger Krovars began calling out, confused and alarmed. The sound came from Claire's position, but she was clearly not in pain. The contradiction created uncertainty. Claire switched recordings. Now the sound was a Krovar mating call. Then a challenge roar. Then a territorial warning. She cycled through every sound she had recorded, demonstrating that she could speak their language, control their signals, manipulate their responses. The younger Krovars became increasingly agitated. They paced and called and looked to their Alpha for guidance. But the Alpha simply watched Claire. Its eyes held something that looked almost like recognition. This human understood them, studied them, knew their sounds, their territories, their fears. This was not prey. This was something else entirely. One of the younger Krovars, frustrated beyond control, charged. It crossed half the distance to Claire in two powerful bounds, jaws open, ready to end the confusion with violence. The Alpha moved faster. It intercepted the younger Krovar mid-charge, slamming into its side with enough force to send both creatures tumbling. They rolled through the underbrush, a tangle of scales and claws. The Alpha emerged on top, its jaws locked around the younger one's throat. Not biting down. Just holding. A clear message. The young Krovar went still, submitting. The Alpha released it and made a sharp sound. The younger Krovar slunk away, chastised. The other two young ones lowered their heads, acknowledging the command. No one attacks the human. Claire had not moved during the entire exchange. She sat by her fire, watching calmly as if she had expected exactly this outcome. Because she had. She had pushed the young ones deliberately, knowing they would break before the Alpha did. Knowing the Alpha would choose control over chaos. The Alpha approached the fire. Closer than it had come before. Close enough that Claire could see the scars on its scales, the marks of old battles. Close enough that the heat must have been uncomfortable. It sat down. Still watching. Still learning. Claire pulled out her scanner and checked the surrounding area. The data showed exactly what she had hoped to see. They were close now. Close to the place where everything would change. She looked at the Alpha and smiled. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "you'll understand what I've been showing you." The Alpha's eyes gleamed in the firelight. And for the first time since the hunt began, Claire thought she saw understanding in those eyes. Not human understanding. Something else. The recognition that she was a hunter too. Just a different kind. Claire woke to find the Alpha sleeping 30 meters from her camp. The sight should have terrified her. Instead she felt oddly calm. The creature had chosen to rest near her rather than maintain hunting distance. That choice meant something. The younger Krovars were nowhere to be seen. Either the Alpha had sent them away or they had given up on understanding this strange hunt. Claire suspected the former. What came next required intelligence, not numbers. She packed her camp quietly, but the Alpha's eyes opened at her first movement. It watched her work, making no effort to hide its observation. The pretense of ambush predator was gone. This was open acknowledgement. Two creatures aware of each other, moving through the same space. Claire checked her scanner one final time. The box canyon was 2 kilometers ahead. She had discovered it during her second month on Krovars 7, marked it on her maps with a red warning symbol. Danger. Stay away. The kind of place researchers avoided. The kind of place she was walking toward now. She started moving. The Alpha stood and followed, maintaining that same 20-meter distance. Its gait was different today. More relaxed. It was no longer stalking. Just following. Curious about where this strange prey would lead. The terrain changed as they walked. The forest thinned. Rocky outcroppings replaced trees. The ground became harder, covered in loose stones that clicked under Claire's boots. The Alpha's claws scraped against the rock with each step, a steady rhythm behind her. Claire saw the canyon's entrance ahead. A narrow gap between two massive cliff faces, barely wide enough for the Alpha to squeeze through. The rocks around the entrance were smooth, worn down by something massive brushing against them repeatedly. Claw marks scored the stone, each gouge as wide as Claire's hand. The Alpha stopped at the canyon entrance. His body language changed instantly. Every muscle tensed. Its head lowered. A deep growl rumbled from its chest. It knew this place. Knew what lived here. Claire turned to face the creature. You recognize these marks, don't you? You know what made them. The Alpha's eyes fixed on her. There was warning in that gaze. Turn back. Danger ahead. Claire smiled and walked into the canyon. The Alpha did not follow. It paced at the entrance, agitated, making low sounds that might have been concern or might have been anger. Claire had gambled that it would not abandon her completely. That curiosity and the need to understand would overcome instinct. She was betting her life on predator psychology. The canyon walls rose high on either side, blocking out most of the sunlight. The temperature dropped immediately. Claire's breath became visible in the cold air. She pulled out her thermal scanner and watched the readings spike. Something massive was ahead. Something that generated enormous body heat. She walked deeper into the canyon, her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The path curved slightly, preventing her from seeing what lay ahead. But she could hear it now. A breathing sound. Slow and deep, like wind through a cavern. Claire rounded the corner and stopped. The Titan WYRM filled the canyon. Its body was easily 20 meters long, coiled in the widest section of the space. Scales the size of dinner plates covered its serpentine form, each one reflecting the dim light like polished metal. Its head rested on its coils, eyes closed. Sleeping. But not deeply. One eye cracked open as Claire approached. A vertical pupil contracted, focusing on her. The breathing stopped. Claire stood perfectly still. Her heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her expression calm. The WRM was the apex predator of Krovars 7. It feared nothing. Krovars avoided its territory religiously. Humans had lost 3 research teams to WRM attacks before learning to stay away. She was standing in its home, small and vulnerable and absolutely insane. The WRM's head lifted slowly. Its mouth opened slightly, revealing teeth longer than Claire's arm. A forked tongue emerged, tasting the air. Analyzing her scent. Deciding if she was worth the effort of killing. Claire pulled out her hollow projector. Her hands were steady despite her fear. She activated the device and pointed it at the canyon wall. A massive Krovar Alpha appeared on the stone, projected in perfect detail. The hologram showed the creature in full threat display, scales raised, jaws open, making the challenge roar that meant territorial dispute. The WRM's reaction was immediate. Its entire body tensed. Both eyes opened fully. It rose up, uncoiling, its massive form filling the canyon. The projected Krovar was a threat. An intrusion into its domain. Behind Claire at the canyon entrance, she heard the real Alpha roar. The sound echoed through the canyon, mixing with the hologram's recording. The WRM turned its attention toward the entrance, where the actual threat now appeared. The Alpha had entered the canyon. Claire ran. Not toward the WRM, but toward a narrow split in the canyon wall she had spotted on her scanner. A space too small for the WRM but large enough for a human. She squeezed through just as the WRM's head struck the ground where she had been standing. From her protected position, Claire watched the confrontation. The Alpha faced the WRM, trapped in the narrow canyon with no room to maneuver. The younger Krovars had not followed. Only the Alpha had been brave enough or curious enough to enter. Now it would die because of that choice. Unless... Claire activated her hollow projector again. This time she projected a different image. A Krovar submission display. The posture that meant retreat, not challenge. She aimed it at the wall opposite the Alpha. The Alpha saw the projection. Understood the message. But pride or instinct held it in place. Could not submit to prey. The WRM coiled, preparing to strike. Its muscles bunched, storing energy for an attack that would crush the Alpha against the canyon wall. Claire made a decision. She threw a flare past the Alpha toward the canyon entrance. The bright red light drew the WRM's attention for just a second. Just long enough. Move! Claire shouted. The Alpha bolted. Not in retreat but in a coordinated maneuver. It ran along the canyon wall, using the narrow space where the WRM's bulk could not easily reach. Claire threw another flare, then another, creating a path of light that drew the WRM's strikes away from the Alpha's position. They were working together. Human and Predator. Each using their strengths to cover the other's weaknesses. The Alpha reached the canyon entrance and turned, waiting. Claire emerged from her hiding spot and ran. The WRM struck at her, but she had already mapped its attack patterns. She dodged left, then right, using her smaller size to slip through gaps the Alpha could not have used. A claw caught her backpack, tearing it from her shoulders. Equipment scattered across the canyon floor. Claire did not stop to retrieve it. She ran for the entrance, for the light, for freedom. The Alpha was waiting. As Claire emerged, the creature fell into step beside her. They ran together, side by side, while the WRM's frustrated roar shook the canyon behind them. They did not stop running until they were a full kilometer away. Finally, Claire collapsed against a rock, gasping for breath. The Alpha stood nearby, its own breathing heavy but controlled. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The hunt was over. Both of them knew it. What had started as predator and prey had become something else entirely. The Alpha approached slowly. Claire did not move even as the massive head came close enough to touch. She could smell its breath, feel the heat radiating from its body. The creature could kill her now. One bite. One strike of its claws. Instead, the Alpha lowered its head and touched its nose to Claire's forehead. The gesture was gentle, deliberate. A Krovar greeting between equals. Between pack members. Claire raised her hand slowly and placed it on the Alpha's scaled snout. "I understand you," she whispered. "And you understand me." The Alpha pulled back and made a soft sound. Not aggressive. Almost approving. Then it turned and walked away, back toward its territory. Claire watched it go, a smile spreading across her face. She had proven her point. Had demonstrated that understanding was more powerful than strength. The hunt had ended. But something new had begun. Claire spent the next 2 days recovering her scattered equipment and documenting everything that had happened. The Alpha appeared each morning at the edge of her camp, watching for a few hours before disappearing into the forest. The younger Krovars kept their distance, but she could see them observing from the trees. They were learning from their Alpha's example. The human was not prey. She was something else. On the third morning, Claire woke to a sound she had not expected to hear again. The high-pitched whine of atmospheric engines. A ship was landing. She grabbed her scanner and checked the signature. Her heart sank. It was not a rescue vessel. The ship was unmarked, using outdated stealth technology that barely masked its energy output. Pirates. Or worse, poachers. Claire had heard stories about them during her training. Illegal hunters who came to protected worlds, killing rare species for black market sales. Krovar pelts sold for enormous amounts on certain worlds. The scales could be made into armor. The claws into weapons. A single Alpha could fund a poacher crew for a year. The ship landed 3 kilometers away in a clearing near the river. Claire's scanner picked up 6 human signatures spreading out from the landing site. They moved with military precision, carrying heavy weapons. Scanning for targets. The Alpha appeared at Claire's side so suddenly that she jumped. The creature's attention was fixed on the direction of the landing site. Its body language screamed danger. Threat. Intruders in its territory. "They're here for you," Claire said quietly. "For your pack. Your scales are worth more than my entire research grant." The Alpha growled, low and threatening. Behind it, the 3 younger Krovars emerged from the forest. They had sensed the danger too. The pack was gathering. Claire's emergency beacon was still in the ruins of her research station. She could hike there, activate it, call for help. A legitimate rescue ship could arrive in hours. She could be safe, off this world, away from danger. But the poachers would slaughter the pack while she waited for rescue. She looked at the Alpha, at the intelligence in its eyes. At the creature that had hunted her, tested her, and ultimately accepted her. At the being that had chosen understanding over killing. Claire made her choice. She pulled up her terrain maps and began planning. The poachers were moving in a standard search pattern, sweeping through the forest in a coordinated line. They had tracking equipment, thermal scanners, probably DNA sniffers. They would find the pack within hours. Unless Claire found them first. "Listen to me," she said to the Alpha. The creature's attention focused on her completely. "I know you don't understand my words. But you understand tactics. You understand hunting." She activated her holo projector and showed the Alpha a map of the area. She marked the poacher's position with red dots. Then she marked a location 2 kilometers west with a blue dot. A narrow valley with high walls on both sides. perfect for an ambush. The Alpha watched the projection intently. Its head tilted as it studied the map. Claire highlighted a path from the poacher's current position to the valley. Then she showed how the pack could position themselves on the high ground. She did not know if the Alpha understood, but she had to try. Claire grabbed her remaining gear and started moving. She headed directly toward the poacher's position, making no effort to hide her trail. She wanted them to find her tracks. Wanted them to follow. The Alpha watched her go. For a moment it did not move. Then it made a series of sharp barking sounds. Commands. The younger Krovars scattered into the forest, moving fast. The Alpha followed Claire, staying parallel to her path, hidden in the thick underbrush. Claire found the poacher's trail within an hour. Boot prints in soft dirt. Broken branches. Chemical traces from their equipment. She followed their path backward, tracking them the way her father had taught her to track dingoes. She found them at a stream refilling water containers. 6 humans in combat armor, carrying weapons designed to kill large creatures. One of them was examining a scanner, probably looking for Krovar DNA signatures. Claire picked up a rock and threw it into the stream 30 meters from their position. The splash brought all 6 weapons up instantly. They moved like trained soldiers, forming a defensive circle, scanning for threats. Movement northeast, one of them called out. Human-sized. Impossible, another responded. Intel said this site was abandoned. Evacuation completed 3 days ago. Well, someone's still here. Claire threw another rock, this time from a different angle. Then she ran. Not fast, not panicked. Just fast enough to leave a clear trail. Fast enough to make them chase. The poachers followed. She heard their boots pounding through the forest behind her, heard their voices calling coordinates to each other. They were professional, organized. But they were also focused on her now. Not scanning for Krovars. Chasing the unexpected human. Claire led them on a winding path, always staying just ahead. She made noise deliberately, broke branches, disturbed ground. She wanted them confident. Wanted them to think they were the hunters. The valley appeared ahead. Claire ran into it without hesitation. The poachers followed, spreading out into a pursuit line. They had her trapped, or so they thought. High walls on both sides. No way out except back the way they came. Got her cornered, one of them said into a comm unit. Looks like a researcher. Probably stayed behind by accident. Claire stopped running. She turned to face them, hands raised. 6 weapons aimed at her chest. Please, she said, making her voice shake. Don't shoot. I'm not armed. The lead poacher lowered his weapon slightly. What are you doing here? This world was evacuated. I got left behind. My beacon was destroyed. I've been surviving, waiting for rescue. Well, today's your lucky day, the poacher said. We'll take you to our ship. After we finish our business here. Business? Claire asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. Hunting. This world has some valuable specimens. Now, are you going to cooperate or? The Alpha's roar cut him off. The sound came from above, from the valley walls. All 6 poachers spun toward it, weapons raised. The younger Krovars appeared on both sides of the valley, positioned on the high ground exactly as Claire had hoped. The Alpha stood directly behind the poachers, having circled around while they focused on Claire. The trap had closed. What the lead poacher started to say. You're not hunting them, Claire said calmly. They're hunting you. The Alpha charged. Not at the poachers but past them, cutting off their retreat path. The younger Krovars leaped from the walls, landing between the humans and their escape route. The poachers opened fire, but they were panicking now, shooting wildly. Claire dove behind a rock as energy weapons lit up the valley. The Krovars moved with precision, working as a coordinated unit. They did not kill the humans, just disarmed them, scattered them, drove them toward the valley's dead end. Within minutes it was over. The poachers were huddled together, weaponless, surrounded by 4 Krovars who could have torn them apart but chose not to. Claire stood and walked toward the poachers. Your ship. Call it. Tell them to leave this world and never come back. The lead poacher stared at her, then at the Krovars. You're working with them? Call your ship. Now. He made the call. Claire listened as he ordered the crew to lift off immediately, to abort the mission. She watched on her scanner as the ship's signature rose into the atmosphere and then jumped to faster-than-light travel. Gone. The poachers remained trapped for another hour until Claire heard the sound she had been waiting for. Different engines. A clean, regulated signature. The official rescue ship that Commander Alan Foster had finally sent. The ship landed outside the valley. Foster himself came running in, weapon drawn, freezing when he saw the scene. Claire standing calmly. 6 poachers sitting on the ground. 4 Krovars surrounding them all. Dr. Morgan? Foster said slowly. What exactly happened here? Claire smiled. A successful hunt, Commander. We caught some poachers. It took hours to explain everything. The rescue team took the poachers into custody. They examined Claire's equipment, her recordings, her documentation of everything that had happened. The footage of her coordinating with the Krovars, of the Alpha's intelligence, of the pack working as a tactical unit. As the sun set, Foster approached Claire one final time. This changes everything. If Krovars have this level of intelligence, this world will be reclassified. Full protection. No more research stations. No more human presence. Good, Claire said. The Alpha had been watching from a distance throughout the day. Now, as the rescue team prepared to leave, it approached one final time. The younger Krovars stayed back, but the Alpha walked directly to Claire. Foster raised his weapon instinctively. Doctor, get back. No, Claire said firmly. Just watch. The Alpha stopped in front of her. Slowly, deliberately, it lowered its massive head and touched its nose to Claire's forehead. The gesture lasted several seconds. A goodbye. An acknowledgement. A promise. Claire placed her hand on the Alpha's snout. Thank you, she whispered. For teaching me. For trusting me. The Alpha pulled back, made a soft sound that might have been approval and turned away. The pack followed it into the forest, disappearing into the shadows. Foster stared at Claire. In all my years I've never seen anything like that. Claire gathered her remaining equipment and followed him to the ship. As they lifted off, she looked down at the forest one final time. She knew the pack was down there somewhere, watching. Remembering the human who had hunted hunters and taught them that understanding was worth more than violence. Her footage would change everything. Kethra 7 would be protected. The Krovars would be safe. And somewhere in the galaxy, people would tell the story of Dr. Claire Morgan, the researcher who turned a hunt into a conversation between species. The human who smiled when the Alpha beast chose its target, and asked the only question that mattered. Let's see who's hunting who.